In the early days of spaceflight, sending one person into space was a very rare event. It was like seeing the first car in a small town. Everyone stopped to look. Everyone remembered where they were. In April of 1961, one man named Yuri Gagarin rode a rocket built by the Soviet Union. It lifted him above the air. It went fast enough to keep falling around Earth instead of falling back down. That one flight changed history. Since then, space has slowly filled with people. But it happened very slowly for a long time. Now things are changing fast. By February of 2026, SpaceX will have sent a total of 72 people into space. That number sounds small at first. 72 people is less than a school bus full of kids. But in space terms, it is huge. This includes every seat on every Crew Dragon flight up through Crew-12. 18 missions before that carried 68 people. Crew-12 adds 4 more. That brings the total seats filled to 72. Of those, 68 are unique people. A few people flew more than once. Peggy Whitson is one example. Michael Lopez Alegria is another. Flying twice in space is rare. Flying 3 times is almost unheard of. Russia has sent more than 130 unique people into space. This is more than double the total for SpaceX. But Russia took over 60 years to do it. They started with Gagarin. They kept going with Soyuz flights year after year. Russia kept sending people even when money was tight. They sent them even when politics were messy. They sent them even when rockets failed. That long pattern matters. It shows how hard this really is. To understand why this matters, you need to know what it takes to send one person to space. A rocket is not like a plane. A plane lifts because air flows over its wings. A rocket has no wings. It works by throwing fuel out the back very fast. That push lifts it up. This is like how a garden hose kicks back if the water is on high. To stay in space, it must go sideways very fast. It needs to go about 7,500 miles per hour. That is like driving from New York to Los Angeles in under 10 minutes. If you miss that speed, you fall back down. If you go too fast, you miss Earth entirely. There is no room for error. Every Crew Dragon mission uses a reusable rocket. This means the first stage lands back on Earth. Sometimes it lands on land, sometimes it lands on a ship at sea. Think of throwing a pencil straight up. Now imagine catching it tip down on a moving skateboard. That is what SpaceX does. Reusing rockets matters because rockets are expensive. One rocket can cost as much as building a large hospital. If you throw it away every time, costs explode. If you land it and use it again, costs drop fast. This is where SpaceX changed the game. Before them, rockets were single use. It was like throwing away a car after one drive. NASA did this. Russia did this. Everyone did. SpaceX decided not to. They failed many times. Rockets tipped over. Rockets exploded. One nearly hit a drone ship at sea and missed by seconds. Engineers watched in silence. Then they tried again and again. Now landings are routine. By June of 2025, SpaceX had flown 18 Crew Dragon missions. These include NASA crews and private crews. Each one carried about 4 people. SpaceX is still building its bench. Russia already built theirs decades ago. Russia has had more time and more flights. Now let's look at the Raptor engines on SpaceX ships. These engines can change their power smoothly. It is like how you press the gas pedal in your car a little or a lot. They can go from 40% power to 100% power. Older engines are more like an on-off switch. They are either at full blast or they are off. This matters a lot for landing. When you land a rocket, you need to adjust the power very carefully. It is like trying to balance on one foot. You need many small adjustments to stay upright. SpaceX rockets can do that. That is why they can land and others cannot. SpaceX has done this in just 6 years of crewed flight. Russia has had over 60 years. If you think in car terms, SpaceX learned to build reliable engines very fast. They did it in the time it takes most companies to design just one car model. That speed matters. It shows how fast learning grows when you use systems again and again. Russia still matters because they never stopped. Even in 2025, Soyuz missions still fly. Each flight adds knowledge. Each flight trains crews. Each flight keeps factories running. Space programs are like muscles. If you stop using them, they get weak. One SLS launch costs $4.1 billion, according to NASA. That is billion with a B. To put that in perspective, $4.1 billion is enough to buy every person in Houston a brand new car. For comparison, Starship is supposed to cost about $10 million per launch once it is working. One SLS launch costs 410 times more than one Starship launch. That same $4.1 billion could pay for 410 Starship launches. Or think of it another way. SpaceX could launch Starship every single day for more than a year for what NASA pays for one SLS flight. When you are trying to build stuff in space, those numbers matter a lot. This is where your tax dollars can go a lot further with reuse. Sending one person to space used to cost hundreds of millions of dollars. That is enough to build thousands of homes. SpaceX brought that down. Reuse is the key. Fewer new rockets means faster work and less waste. This is resource efficiency. It is like fixing your tools instead of buying new ones for every single job. Russia has launched over 500 total seats across all its missions. SpaceX is at 72 by early 2026. Russia is ahead in total people. SpaceX is ahead in speed. Both things are true. The Crew-12 mission does not overlap with Artemis II training. This matters more than it sounds at first. A lot of folks picture the same astronauts running between two jobs. They think it is like a guy working two shifts at once. That is not how NASA works. NASA runs like a factory with separate assembly lines. One line feeds the space station, the other feeds the moon program. Crew-12 is on one line only. Artemis II is on the other. They do not cross. They do not cross in daily work or in training. NASA assigns astronauts to one mission at a time on purpose. They do this to reduce mistakes. Space is very dangerous. One small error can kill people. So once an astronaut is picked for a mission, that mission becomes their full-time job. No side projects, no backups. Crew-12 became a locked team the moment NASA made the announcement in late 2025. From that day on, their calendars filled up fast. They have long days and long weeks. Crew-12 is a normal space station trip. Think of it like a long work trip. The International Space Station is a big metal lab flying around Earth. It goes around the planet once every 90 minutes. That means sunrise and sunset 16 times a day. Boeing tried to compete with SpaceX. Their Starliner program struggled. Delays piled up. Costs rose. Flights slipped. Astronauts had to wait. This matters because competition keeps prices honest. Boeing's issues slowed that competition. That left SpaceX carrying more responsibility than planned. When one company stumbles, it puts more pressure on the other. Programs that waste money often lose support. Programs that deliver results gain it. This is not about speeches. It is about launches that happen on time. SpaceX delivered. Boeing stumbled. NASA had to adjust. The system corrected itself because it had to. Safety really works by endless checking. One Crew Dragon test nearly failed because a valve stuck. Engineers caught it before launch. It was found just days before liftoff. That one fix prevented a possible loss of the crew. This is why focus is so important. If engineers were distracted by two programs at once, they might miss that valve. NASA tracks error rates in training. When astronauts train for one system, errors drop. When they switch between systems, errors go up. That data exists. NASA acts on it. That is why the walls are so firm between programs. Artemis II is not a station mission. It is a moon mission. It is a very different job with a different spacecraft. It has different risks and different goals. Artemis II is a test flight around the moon with humans on board. There is no landing and no walking this time. It is just a loop around the moon and back. That might sound simple, but it is not. It is one of the hardest trips humans have ever tried. The Artemis II crew is already fixed. Reed Wiseman is the commander. Victor Glover is the pilot. They train together almost every day. They train for launch day and for emergency stops. They train for the fiery ride back through the air. The capsule hits the air so fast it glows like a fireball. That heat can melt steel. The heat shield is the only thing standing between them and death. This shield is built to burn away in a controlled way. It is kind of like how a candle burns. As the outer layer burns, it carries the heat away from the capsule. If the shield fails, the crew dies. This is why Artemis training looks nothing like station training. Station crews train in big pools. The pool is so deep it can hide a full-size space station model. Artemis crews do more time in simulators. They sit in mock capsules and practice every switch and every button. The delay pushed the moon landing from 2026 to sometime in 2027. China says they are going to land people on the moon in 2030. Originally, the US was going to beat them by 4 years. Now it is only 3 years. If NASA delays again, that gap drops to 2 years. China has been really good at hitting their deadlines. Their space station was built on time. Their moon robots were on time. Their astronaut launches were on time. NASA's recent record is different. Things keep getting delayed. So these timelines are getting closer and closer. China sits quietly watching the US and Russia. They fly fewer people, but each flight works. China moves carefully. It is slow but steady. This is strategy. They are building depth the way Russia did, not speed like SpaceX. We can see a pattern here. Look at the early space programs like Apollo and the Space Shuttle. Every time NASA tried to push too fast or mix roles, problems followed. When they slowed down and separated tasks, success followed. NASA learned from that pain. That lesson shaped today's system. They now isolate risk. Crew-12 does station work. Artemis does moon work. Mixing them would multiply problems. The space station is about 250 miles above Earth. That is like driving from New York to Boston, but straight up. If something goes wrong, crews can come home in hours. The moon is about 240,000 miles away. That is like driving around Earth 10 times. If something goes wrong there, help is days away. Artemis astronauts train for deep space. Deep space means no backup and no quick rescue. They train how to survive if power drops. They train how to fix things with no spare parts. They also train for launch forces. The rocket shakes harder than any roller coaster. It pushes the body with 3 times Earth's gravity. That means you feel 3 times heavier. Artemis astronauts also train for silence. Once they pass a certain point, radio messages take seconds to travel. Imagine talking on the phone with a pause after every sentence. Now imagine doing that during an emergency. This changes how crews think. They must decide alone. Artemis training also includes moon navigation. There is no GPS on the moon, so astronauts learn landmarks like crater edges and shadows. This is like hiking with no phone and only a paper map. Let's look at the financial forensics of these seats. NASA pays SpaceX about $65 million per seat today. Russia used to charge up to $90 million per seat. That is a difference of $25 million per astronaut. Over 4 astronauts, that is $100 million saved per mission. That money can fund more science or better safety. Saving your tax dollars like this allows more missions to happen. Spending your tax dollars wisely is the only way to keep the program going. Crew Dragon launches on Falcon 9. Falcon 9 is one of the most flown rockets in history. It flies 140 times per year. That is more than twice a week, every single week. More flights mean more data. More data means better safety. It is like driving a car model that millions of people already own. The problems are known. The fixes are known. Soyuz flies less often now. That reduces the data we have. NASA has contracts through Crew-14. Prices are stable. Long-term, SpaceX is building Starship. That is a much bigger rocket. It is as tall as a 15-story building. If it works, costs could drop again. Jessica Meir is the Crew-12 commander. She has lived on the space station before. She has done spacewalks. She has fixed things outside while floating above Earth. That is like changing a tire while hanging off a ladder with no ground below you. She acts like a mechanic, a plumber, and a scientist all at once. Jack Hathaway is the pilot. His training alone took about 2 years. It covers everything from survival in the ocean to how to fix a toilet in zero gravity. By the time he joined Crew-12, he was ready for the station and nothing else. The other 2 crew members come from Europe and Russia. The station is a shared house owned by many families. Everyone has rules. Everyone trains together. A loose screw can float into a fan and shut it down. The space station is like an old house that keeps running. It has been up there since 1998. Pipes clog and fans wear out. Crew-12 trains to fix all of that. Artemis 2 flies in a new capsule built for deep space. That capsule has different controls and different screens. Mixing those 2 systems in one brain is too risky. One big reveal is the hatch seal incident. During Orion testing, a hatch seal showed wear that almost failed inspection. One technician noticed it late in the day. It was found just 30 minutes before the final sign-off. That single catch prevented a flight risk. That kind of detail focus defines why Artemis has delays. It is not about SpaceX, it is about making sure the moon ship is perfect. When someone says a Crew-12 problem could delay Artemis 2, they are mixing lanes. They are assuming spaceflight is one big line of dominoes. It is not. It is more like a toolbox. You have different tools for different jobs. If one tool breaks, you pick another. The whole house does not collapse. Artemis 2 stands on its own. It rises or falls based on Orion and NASA decisions. Crew-12 lives in a different world with a different rocket and a different pad. That separation is not an accident. It is a design choice built from decades of hard lessons. History says leadership changes when technology shifts. Reusable rockets are that shift. The race is no longer just about flags. It is about systems. It is about who can build, test, fix, and fly the fastest with the least waste. SpaceX is winning that race right now. Russia still leads in total human scent. China is closing gaps quietly. NASA is adapting. By February 2026, the number 72 will be real. These are 72 people who saw Earth from above. They saw a world with no borders. They trusted machines and teams. It is a small number, but every big number starts small. What matters is the curve. Right now, the SpaceX curve is very steep. The next decade will decide if that curve keeps rising. Astronaut careers are mapped like chess moves. One mission sets up the next. Crew-12 experience feeds into later station work. Artemis 2 feeds into Artemis 3, which aims to land humans on the moon. Mixing those steps would break the chain. Each crew is trained for a specific job down to muscle memory. Muscle memory means your hands move before your brain catches up. That saves time in emergencies. You only get that by doing the same thing over and over. That is why training stays focused. That is why the mission succeeds. Space is never routine, but focus makes it possible. In the end, Crew-12 and Artemis II are neighbors, not roommates. They live in the same family, but follow different schedules. That separation is wisdom. It is how we get to the moon and beyond without losing our way. Each launch is a step toward a future where space is for everyone. The scoreboard will keep updating, and the updates will come faster than ever before. This is the new age of space, and it is just getting started. One launch at a time, we are building a path to the stars. The numbers will grow, the costs will fall, the risk will remain, but the rewards are worth it. We are watching history happen right now. Every seat filled is a victory for the human race, and as long as we keep learning, the sky is not the limit. It is just the beginning.